And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning's flying weather showing some pretty good VFR here from the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, right up into the west central interior, and then following the Yukon River northeastward there. Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, marginal VFR with areas of IFR, especially on the eastern coast up there. And to the east, we've got a couple of zones of IFR right here and over the eastern Copper River Basin. Marginal VFR back into the Tanana Valley, into Denali Park. And then lots of IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. IFR for the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, improving here over all of interior Alaska with VFR from the Arctic coast southward into the Gulf of Alaska, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. Improving to marginal VFR with maybe even some VFR breaking out over the northern southeast coast there. And for the Alaska Peninsula, marginal VFR mainly on the Pacific side of the peninsula. And we've got IFR here from the Bering Strait covering just about all of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And moving on to the Tuesday morning time frame, you can see this area pushes, there we go, get the right direction here, pushes right into the southwest interior as well as Norton Sound, the Seward Peninsula, and along the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. North slope, Arctic coast, mostly VFR. Central eastern part of the state, VFR. We've got IFR sliding into southern Cook Inlet, at least southwestern Cook Inlet. Kodiak Island deteriorating to IFR. And some IFR along the coast of the Panhandle, otherwise marginal VFR, but up around Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, Yakutat, and the Prince William Sound, VFR. And then for the afternoon, back to VFR here for the southeast coast, as well as the central and eastern part of the state, all the way up to the north slope and Arctic coast with some marginal VFR along the western Arctic coast. And we've got marginal VFR here, northern Koyukuk Valley, and that zone will cover all of the Kobuk Valley, as well as the western interior here, right down into Togiak, Dillingham area, maybe King Salmon. And IFR, a little more fragmented, a lot less of it out here over the Bering Sea, with some IFR here along and southwest of Nunivak Island that extends down into the eastern Aleutians, and then out to the west, areas of IFR for the remainder of the Aleutian chain. And for passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR becoming VFR throughout the day, and Adigan improving as well, especially in the morning hours, becoming VFR by noon. And through the afternoon, Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR in the forecast. Same thing for Rainy, VFR. VFR for windy, Isabel and Mentasta, so the entire Alaska range forecast to be VFR. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White showing some improvement, starting out IFR, but gradually improving throughout the day. And for the freezing levels here, cool upper level low pulling eastward here across southern Alaska, so 4,000 feet here associated with that feature, and then back to 8 to 12,000 feet here over the southwest interior. Freezing levels also 8 to 12,000 feet over the Panhandle, and 14,000 feet just south of the western Aleutians, and then some cooler air up here along the western Arctic coast with the freezing levels up there running 2 to 4,000 feet, 6,000 feet here down across Kotzebue Sound. And for icing, look for considerable moderate rime icing here for the western Arctic coast, right on down into the Seward Peninsula along the Yukon Delta coast to the north side of St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, icing free for the central and western interior. A little bit of an increase in possible icing there, light isolated or occasional isolated moderate there, call it, for the Adak-Atka area. Nothing too significant there, with most of the moisture staying to the south and the southeast coast icing free. From there, looking at the jet stream, got upper level low pulling pretty rapidly by tomorrow afternoon into Canada here over the Yukon with a good 105 knot jet blowing right into the northern and central southeast coast. Lighter, more west-northwesterly wind, something of a ridge right through here into the southwest interior along the Yukon River. 80 knot southwest winds across the Chukchi Sea, and 85 knot west-northwesterlies for the western and central Aleutians. 9,000 feet, couple of low centers here, one up along the Russian coast there, another one back down to the south over the northern Bering Sea here. In advance of that, 50-knot winds, 40 to 45-knot southwesterlies here into the western interior, and that kind of pushing this high through. That tomorrow afternoon should be right in this location, so it's going to make a pretty good day tomorrow here for central and eastern part of the state down to Kodiak Island. And for the southeast coast, low pressure just northeast of Yakutat. Good westerly winds here as high as 50 to 55 knots there across the southern southeast coast. Turbulent, or for 3,000 feet, 35-knot winds there. Prince of Wales Island, otherwise northwest 30 over the eastern Gulf of Alaska. High pressure, light variable winds over the central and eastern interior. Pretty light here, even from Kodiak Island all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. And then with lower pressure out to the west here, in between these two centers, enough gradient here for a pretty strong southwest wind, south-southwesterlies 45 to 50 knots all along the west coast there, say from Point Lay all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, Nikolsky on Alaska. Turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence in the forecast here for the northwestern Arctic coast, again about Point Lay or so, especially Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, through the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, right down along the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, as well as the central and eastern Aleutians.